I'd like to call the Orange Board of Education meeting on Monday, October 18th, 2021 to order at 7:02. Will you all be kind enough to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kim, would you be kind enough to read the mission statement, please?
Happily, thank you. The Orange Elementary School District recognizes that the education of each child is the shared responsibility of every member of our community. Our goal is to inspire and empower each student to achieve academic excellence, embrace social and individual responsibility, and lead with integrity. We believe all individuals should be valued and treated with respect. Together, we will make a difference.
Thank you, Mrs. Burrow. Do we have, I don't see any public participation, correct? All right, so we will move on.
I have one thing, Chairman Kraut.
I'm sorry?
I
Please.
just wanted to make an announcement. Is that now? The Jamie Hulley Arts Foundation is doing an afternoon for the arts on Sunday, November 7th. It's at Amity High School. It's during the day, and there will be masks, but it is a fundraiser, and since the Jamie Hulley Art Foundation does support our schools, I would strongly, if anybody's interested, you can look that up. It's November 7th at Amity High School.
Okay.
Tickets you can get in advance.
Remind me, we'll make that announcement at the end of the meeting as well. That's a good foundation. Consent agenda. I am looking for a motion to accept the items under the consent agenda. The regular and executive session minutes from the September 20th, 21 Board of Education meeting. Do I have a motion to accept those minutes? Susan, second? Ken? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Very well. Dr. Scarpetti, kind enough to make your report.
Good evening, board members. As we come to the completion of the second month of school, we are continuing to address the effects of the pandemic in a multitude of areas, one of which is the contact tracing that occurs with each positive case. I'd like to send a thanks to all the school nurses and principals for their thoroughness as they address the safety and wellness of our students and staff. Thanks to the staff's attention to detail in order to keep our students in school, and especially the patience from our parents as we go through this process. Another area that poses a challenge that we discussed at the most recent Building and Grounds and Subcommittee is with regards to the supply chain. As some of you may be aware, you've seen it in the news, people are warning about ordering things in advance. We had a thorough discussion at the Building and Grounds Subcommittee meeting. I have asked Mr. Gray to go into some details about that, but I actually foresee this is going to be an ongoing conversation we have, not only for this year, but for next year's budget of what we have to do in order to stay ahead of this. Some of those discussions already began. I want to thank Mr. Cap. He was nice enough to meet with myself and Matt Ullring to talk about technology. We're looking at smart boards and other items that we may have to take advantage of ordering them now instead of waiting for next year. When we discuss supplies and materials, this of course bridges to the budget process, which has begun. Initial notices have been sent to all the district's department heads and principals, and we'll be sharing the budget timeline in the next board update. Not only is this time that we begin the budget process, but it is also time for parent-teachers conferences, believe it or not. So tomorrow and Thursday, we have early releases. The staff has been getting ready, and we look forward to seeing our parents this Tuesday and Thursday. Another item is with regards that comes out this time of the year is the winter letter. We share with our parents about delays, early releases, really pertaining to snow days. And we just want to make clear, we stated this before, that there will not be any remote learnings when there's a snow day. That has not been approved or acknowledged from the state, so we will unfortunately be unable to do so. So when it's a snow day, it's a snow day, and it'll be added at the end of the calendar. As shared at the previous board meetings, we had a tentative agreement with the custodian bargaining group, and since then, the contract has been ratified and signed. Last Friday, a tentative agreement occurred between the board and the Orange Teachers League. We are waiting for the bargaining unit to ratify that contract, and we'll present it to the entire board at the November board meeting. I thank the negotiating committee for all the time that was given this past Friday. As we look ahead, the November board meeting will also, we will also share the draft of the school calendar, believe it or not, with the hope of the calendar being adopted for 22-23 at the December board meeting. And lastly, Mr. Kraut, with your permission, this is the last board meeting for certain board members here, and I'd like to acknowledge those board members. First is Mr. Flynn. Mr. Flynn joined us in 2017. He's been participating a variety of ways with the curriculum instruction subcommittee, and as recently, he's been part of Building and Grounds. He'll actually be doing a wonderful presentation at the end of the meeting today, but just want to thank Mr. Flynn for his dedication. It's been said many times by many board members, the dedication, and not to compare other boards, but I believe it's been said that this is the board that takes the most of your time. And for many of you, as we know, you are dedicated to a profession, your family, kids. Mr. Flynn is one of those that has a few children in the district and has dedicated his time. And Mr. Flynn, I just want to, from the bottom of our heart, my heart and the staff here, the commitment that you provided us has been immense. We thank you for that and want to acknowledge you with a little gift here. Next is Mrs. Brow. Mrs. Brow was elected in 2013 and has served many committees. She served Finance, Long Range Plan, School of the 21st Century and Food Services. She's chaired Curriculum, the Health and Wellness, and the Personnel Committee. That's where, as many of you know, and as shared, a lot of the work is done behind the scenes beyond this board meeting. And I've gotten to work very closely with Mrs. Brow and her dedication to the board as many years as she's done that. Again, not only serving as a board member, PTA member, having children go through the school system. We are incredibly grateful for your dedication, Mrs. Brow, and you'll be sorely missed, and we thank you again for everything that you have done. And last, and definitely not least, is Mr. Young. Mr. Young coincidentally served at the same year that Mrs. Brow, again, serving many committees, long range, safety and security, as chaired the Building and Grounds and Personnel. Also, I forgot Mrs. Brow did negotiations along with Mr. Young. Again, being dedicated to his own career, but also family, and making the time to serve many meetings, being available for discussions, as many of you have been, and just want to thank you for your incredible service. Again, I have to say, and I didn't want to say this in the beginning because I want to make sure all of you are included, and even though I extend this to the entire board, there are stereotypes about boards, quite frankly. Why does someone want to become a board member? To stereotype, and this is a stereotype, the word hidden agenda is used. Why does someone come on? And quite honestly, I've seen that when I was a teacher, when I was administrator of school, and I think without people knowing the finer details of this board and how they work together, there are no hidden agendas except one, and that's the students. And so thank you for representing Thank you for the current board who represents that too. But we wish you all the best in all the free time that you have. And again, to all three of you, you'll be sorely missed. And again, appreciate on behalf of the community, but our students, of everything that you've done. So thank you. And Mr. Crowell, that ends the superintendent's report at this time before it's extended with Mr. Gray and Dr. Russo.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Scarpetti. I would just like to make a quick comment, and we'll move on to Kim. I met Kim when she came on the board and gotten to know her family. Our daughters went to school together. Kim and I have had our disagreements over the years, and but we've always talked it out, and we worked it out, and it ended up being what we thought was best for the kids. And the one thing about Kim is she has a great smile. And I would call Kim sometimes on my way to work and whatever, and we would talk. And sometimes it was heated, sometimes it wasn't, and we were talking. At the end of every conversation, I always had a smile on my face. I appreciate that you always made me smile. Mr. Flynn, very dedicated man, very dedicated to the board. I admire the fact that he's not afraid to take on issues that not everyone might agree with. And he is tireless as chairman of Buildings and Grounds, and I thank you for your dedication to that, to the children. And last but not least, as Dr. Scarpetti said, Counselor Young. Some people may think we have a cantankerous relationship, which we do at times, here and away. But I will say this, I have relied on Chris many, many times behind the scenes for advice, whether it was an issue that we agreed on or not, you know, any kind of legal or, you know, procedures. Chris has always been there for me, and much like brothers, we do fight, but at the end of the day, we're friends. Thank you for your dedication, and again, especially to the negotiating end of it. Endless hours dedicated to that. I do appreciate that, so thank you. Thank you all. Okay.
Could we actually not move on? No, I would like to
I'm sorry?
Can we not move on? I would just like to say something, if that's okay.
By all means.
Thank you. When I was asked tonight if I would read the mission statement, I was particularly enthusiastic because I had really spent the weekend thinking about the closing line of the mission statement, which is together we will make a difference. And when I ran 8 years ago, like I was thinking, like I want to make a difference. And if I'm honest, probably a little bit of that was agenda driven. I had maybe some selfish interests when I came on, although I think my intentions were mostly good. But when I decided to run again 4 years later, and the reason I'm sad a little bit tonight is the together we part. And I just want to thank all of you for being the together we, because you are among the smartest, most committed, flexible thinking, open-minded group of leaders that I've ever had the pleasure to work with. And even when we disagreed, we were not adversaries, although sometimes, Christian, it felt like it. But you made me sharper. And so, because all the time, I knew that we all had the same interest, and that was what's best for kids. And it was okay that we didn't always agree about what was the best way to get there, because I knew, though, that we all had that same interest. And my message to those who are coming on after us is that, yes, like focus on making a difference, but really enjoy the together we part, because this has just been an amazing team. Thank you.
Okay, we all set? Very good. Mr. Gray, please.
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Scarpetti said, I just want to thank you for all of your support over the the years, both as a principal and in my new role. I've always appreciated the support of the Board of Education members, and I know the amount of time that goes in it, the together time that you have that people don't realize. So thank you for all of your commitment. I'm going to begin the finance and operations tonight with some good news. We'll start with grants. We have received a new ARP IDEA Part B grant. That means it's the American Rescue Plan Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Part B, for fiscal years 21 and 22. The Orange schools will be allocated $72,921 in each of the 2 years, for a total of about $145,000. The application process began this month. The purpose of this IDEA grant program is to provide federal entitlement funds to assist with the excess cost of providing special education and related services to children with disabilities during the time of COVID. So that's a little bit of good news. This grant is due to the state by November 16th, so we're currently in the process of applying for that grant. Quick update on the Sr2 and Sr3 grants. Again, Sr meaning Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief. Our Sr2 was a $164,000 allocation. To date, we've spent about $8,500 on teacher training, coaching, and supplies. Our Sr3 grant was a $326,000 allocation, and to date, we've expended $164,000 for our summer school program this past summer. Again, 20% of the Sr3 grant that I just spoke about, that funding must be dedicated to learning loss via evidence-based intervention and addressing the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on underrepresented student subgroups. Dr. Russo, myself, and Ms. Koch have put into our plan for the Sr2 and Sr3 grant to allocate for these purposes. The budget Dr. Scarpetti already mentioned is in development process for 22-23. The budget letters have been sent out to all of our department heads, the principals, Director of Special Services, Director of Information Technology. Those budgets are due back to us on October 28th. And as Dr. Scarpetti said, we'll be sharing the entire timeline with all of the board members in the next board update. So you'll see all the dates and how that unfolds and where the meetings take us. Again, our audit update, the Education Financial System, also referred to as EFS, and the Special Education Excess Cost Grant data were both certified and filed prior to the statutory deadline earlier this fall. Our third-party auditors will be performing the agreed-upon procedures audit on these data collections over the course of the next few months, and we're hoping to have that done before the holidays, not beyond the holidays like we did last year. And finally, food services. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, released the national waiver to allow seamless summer option through the 21-22 school year, which continues free lunch for all children during this school year. As mentioned previously, Orange did apply for this waiver, and we were granted the free lunch waiver for all students in our schools. I do want to piggyback on something that Dr. Scarpetti mentioned, which was the supply chain issues. We are beginning to experience some of the issues with the supply chain. The disruptions are beginning to have an impact on our school menus, resulting in a decrease in the availability of some of our usual variety food items, and therefore may require adjustments from time to time of our school menus. We know that that can be an inconvenience for some, especially those who might have food allergies. Our cafeteria staff is determined to avoid the inconvenience of menu changes, but in the event that a change is necessary, the schools are going to do their best to be proactive and get that message out to families as soon as possible. We continue to receive regular updates from the Connecticut State Department of Education, and we'll relay those messages along as we get them. That concludes the finance operations portion of the report.
Any questions for Mr. Gray? Go ahead, Betty.
Thank you, Mike, for your report. In looking at the information that was sent out in the board packet, I'm no longer a member of the Finance Committee, but I do think it is important to separate repairs and maintenance under property services, especially after looking at the very thorough and comprehensive long-range preventive maintenance plan that we're going to be talking about later tonight. And I think in separating those two items out in the regular budget and in the update monthly would be to all of our benefits.
If I can jump in, I think that, I agree with you, Betty, and I think that, I know Mr. Gray has provided us with some of that information in Dr. Scarpetti's update to the board, and he will continue to do that as well. So some of the, in essence, preventative things that are happening in the current month, as well as the, any break fixes, he will be including in Dr.
Okay,
Scarpetti's.
yeah, I'm only, looking at what comes in the board package, and it says repairs and maintenance. It's one line item as
Right.
opposed to two different ones, and I don't have all that specific information at my fingertips, so that's why I'm saying it would be, to me, it would be nice to have them separated.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
Yes, me.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that our auditors understand that we really do not want to get past that December 31st date.
Right.
We've had problems the last couple of years, understand that we were going through COVID, but we really need to hit that deadline.
Right.
And if they don't, then maybe we need to put it out to bid. So, thank you.
We've had the discussions, so.
Anyone else for Mr. Gray? Okay, you want to move on, Mike? Sure. Buildings?
So the facilities update, we are, believe it or not, beginning our winter preparations. We recently had the annual maintenance performed on our school boilers. They were all turned on this morning as there was a bit of a chill in the air. There is some frost, I believe, forecast for either tonight or tomorrow, so it is getting a little chillier. Our snow blowers are being serviced in-house. We are looking at the spark plugs, the belts, the breakaway pins, just to make sure everything is all set, so when we do go to start those up, they are in good working condition. We're in the process of ordering ice melt for all of our buildings. We like to keep a healthy dose of ice melt in our buildings. We do have quite a lot of sidewalk area, and it's even more so now that we're using exterior entrances at our buildings. So we have a lot more sidewalk to be putting down ice melt on. So we are ordering that, again, ahead of time, just in case there's a supply chain issue with that. And our trucks are being prepped for plowing this winter, so we make sure that all the hydraulics are functioning properly on the hitch itself, on the plow itself, and then making sure that the frame of the hitch is appropriately secured to the truck frame as well. So those are all being taken care of. Mentioning supply chain issues, we have seen some of that in facilities as well. We've had paper products have been shorted, where we have ordered paper towels and tissue paper, and they've been a few weeks out. So I actually placed an order today. What I've done with facilities is custodians used to put orders in whenever they needed something. So I've tried to streamline that so we're all ordering at the same time of the month, and we have a month's supply of items. It keeps things consistent, more efficient. We're not due again to order for another couple of weeks, but I just ordered paper towels today and tissue paper, knowing that it's probably going to have a lag time of about 2 to 3 weeks to get to us. So rather than be on the verge of running out, I'd rather have more on the shelves. It doesn't go bad, it doesn't spoil, and we have it on hand. And the same thing with garbage liners. I actually was made aware of this back in the spring, that there would be a shortage of garbage liners because of some of the petroleum facilities down south were offline. And sure enough, that is another area of shortage. So thankfully, I ordered quite a lot of that in May, and we still have some in-house that I've been able to give to our custodial staff. And that's another item that I'm ordering a couple of weeks in advance. So we are starting to experience some of this across the board. The capital planning process is underway, the annual process for developing a 5-year plan of short-term projects for the schools. The plan is due to the Town Ad Hoc Capital Planning Committee by November 12th. A copy of this plan was shared with the Buildings and Grounds Committee at our meeting last Wednesday, October 13th. And each of you will find a copy of it attached to the plan, that the long-range preventive maintenance plan that Mr. Flynn will be going over later this evening. The capital plan is the last page of that packet. And that concludes my facilities update for this evening.
Any questions for Mr. Gray? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Very well. Dr. Russo?
Good evening, everyone. At our last Board of Education meeting and during our curriculum subcommittee meetings, we've been sharing our plans for the upcoming November 2nd Election Day sessions. And since then, we've been meeting with the leadership team regularly to prepare and clarify the actual resources for that day. So for example, the classroom teachers and the EL teachers are updating or are creating their teacher maps and operational curriculum. And so we've finished creating all of the resources for a learning plan for them. And so, for example, just so you get an idea and a flavor for what that's going to be like, there are questions like, why do we have teacher maps? Why do we meet them? So we created a 2-minute video for that, an 8-minute video on how to actually copy the teacher map from a grade level or a district map, an 8-minute video on when to update my teacher map, transitions from unit plans to instruction with lots of examples to support the teachers so that they can meet the expectations of the day and the deliverables that we expect. We have, for our special education teachers and our reading consultants, planned a session with Amity Special Education Middle School and High School teachers to work with Dr. Jewel Tolis on structured literacy and then providing the support for these professionals to update their lessons and their individualized education plans. For our specialists, art, music, Spanish, library, gifted and talented teachers, they'll be meeting with me to actually create the district consensus maps. So they don't have those yet. The teachers already have that. They're going to use those for their grade level and teacher maps. The school psychologist and our social worker will work on our scientific research-based intervention process for behavior. We've got a lot in place for reading. We're evolving for math, but this is an area that we really need to work on. Our speech and language pathologist, we need a little more time to prepare for them, but we promise we'll have something good, and at the next Board of Education meeting, we'll update on what they actually did. We'll conclude the day, the last hour of the day, working on, as we shared previously, with our teacher evaluation process. And so our leadership team met several times, worked really hard to make sure that the 4 tasks and the 8 steps and then all the due dates aligned to those are crystal clear for teachers. We worked on samples for teachers on the possible learning goals. And I'll just remind you, we shared those last time. The possible goals were social and emotional learning for students, student engagement, engaging families, cultural responsiveness, and then academic achievement in English language arts and in math. So just a little example of what the leadership team created, not just samples of the overall goal, but samples of rationale statements for having the goal, specific areas to focus on for the goals with student-facing language, and finally, action steps to accomplish the indicators and the evidence that we would collect to show that goals have been met. And before concluding my report, I would like to thank Charles, Christian, and Kim for all their support. You'll be greatly missed.
Any questions for Dr. Russo? Go ahead, Charles, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say as a teacher how impressed I am that Election Day has been in the works and planned for quite some time, and that the different specialties all have, something that is differentiated for them. So I think that's really something I've noticed year after year here, and frankly, I'm a little jealous at from my day job, the time and thought, and really the continuum of their growth that is meaningful. So I do appreciate the time and thought into that training has taken place. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you, Dr. Russo.
My pleasure.
Okay, we will move on to board business. I believe we have 5 policies here to take a look at. So bear with me as I do some reading here. Second read of policy 3280, gift, grants, and bequests. Do I have a motion to accept policy 3280, gifts, grants, and bequests as presented? Susan, do I have a second? Betty, any discussion on this policy? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Very good. Policy second read 3313, relations with vendors. Do I have a motion to accept policy 3313, relations with vendors as presented? Susan? Ken? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Very good. Second read, 3324, ordering goods and services. Do I have a motion to accept policy 3324, ordering goods and services as presented? Betty, second. Charles? Any further discussion on this policy? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Second read, 3515, community use of school facilities. Do I have a motion to accept policy 3315, community use of schools and facilities as presented? Ken, second. Charles, any discussion? Kim?
So I just want to point out on this one that page 1 is the policy, and everything after that is the regulation, and you're voting on the policy. The regulation is just there because it is very detailed, and CABE noted how detailed it was, so just know that you're really voting on the policy and the regulation. There could be tweaks to that to align with the policy.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Second read, 3524.1, pesticide application. Do I have a motion to accept policy 3524.1 as presented? Betty, second. Charles? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Very well. Okay. We have some first reads that we'll be presenting at the November meeting. First read, 4118.232, 4218.232, drug and alcohol use and possession policy. First read, 1412, fire department policy. First read, 1700, otherwise lawful possession of firearms on school property policy. And first read, 3517, security of buildings and grounds policy. So those will be for us to vote on at the next meeting in November. Counselor, it looks like you're leaving a little early. These policies are right up your alley.
Well, if you're asking me to stick around, put it to a vote.
Okay, standing committees. Finance and Operations, Ms. Riccio.
The Finance Subcommittee met prior to this meeting. Everything is in order. We are staying within budget. We're very happy to hear that we have a new grant that they're applying for. It's fantastic. And that we are, have a good plan for our regular grants.
Any questions for Ms. Riccio? Thank you. Personnel Transportation Policy, Mrs. Brow.
So the committee has been doing a lot of work. Thanks to all of you for reading these policies. Most of them were minor edits based on changing legislation. So we just wanted to update keep updated with the legislation. We will meet on the 27th. I believe that's the Monday, the last Monday of the month. We will meet as a subcommittee. And then that will be it for me.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mrs. Brow?
I'm just going to note that we're going to miss Mrs. Brow very much, especially in policy.
No, the volume of work that you've produced over the years in your committee is just tremendous, and we do appreciate it. Buildings and grounds, Mr. Flynn.
Good evening, everyone. I hope your families are well. I wish everyone a happy Socktober as well. Several parts to tonight's presentation, so I'll just start with the first part. Buildings and Grounds met this past Wednesday at Peck Place School at 5 p.m. And as been typical over the last couple of years, we tour our buildings and grounds, and Mr. Gray treated us to a tour of Peck Place. As you might recall, the playgrounds at our other two upper elementary schools have been upgraded, and as the first stage of Peck Place's upgrades, some necessary tree work was done, as well as some cleaning and crushed stone and grading of a culvert that will help with drainage. We are hopeful that Peck Place, the upgraded construction in the Port-in Place, will take place at some point in 2022. We also took a tour of the exterior of the building, and we saw the peck being put in Peck Place by the woodpecker. The sixth grade wing, ironically, while it's the newest wing, has wooden shingles on the side part of the roof, and I believe we are exploring some quotes to perhaps change that consistent with the rest of the building, which I believe are more of a vinyl material. The tent that was on the outside of the Peck yard has been taken down for the season. In addition, while the tree work was taking place to improve drainage for the playground area, there was another major tree in the side yard, while big and beautiful, that was a risk for the building and did have to be taken down. I'm very pleased to announce the leak near the second grade bathroom that was a problem during our first couple of visits appears to be improved. You may recall that some of the anchoring for our solar units has been addressed, and the patching of that has seemingly helped with that problem. We are exploring some quotes for flooring at the Peck main entrance, particularly just as you come in to LBT tile. Mr. Gray, it's not just the Red Sox in the playoffs that's indicating the change of season, but a lot of our winter materials are being prepared. And he also mentioned the material shortages. So the perhaps highlight of the evening for Buildings and Grounds is, as you may recall, each subcommittee was kind of given the task of taking a look at the long-range plan for our respective focus to replace the former ad hoc committee. And not to sound nerdy, but I'm very excited to share with you what Mr. Gray and his team have prepared, which I think is very forward thinking. Just a reminder, at Turkey Hill, we have Kathy Manley, Sean Murray. At Peck, we have Joe Spargo and Chris Poulamas. At MLT, Dean Manley and James Walker. At Racebrook, Steve Szymanski and Jeff Skoronsky. Our supervisor of maintenance, Joe Matties. And of course, our director of business and operations, Mr. Gray. Perhaps like a lot of you, I had mixed feelings when Mr. Gray left being a principal, only because of his tremendous contributions to the town, and I thought in some ways it would be a loss. And as great a principal as he has been, I think we are finding out that he is even more accomplished in his new role when you see some of the forward thinking of his plan. Mrs. Brow read our mission statement earlier, and I just highlighted a part that I think is so important to our work in buildings and grounds. We deeply appreciate the contributions of our community partners, not just our taxpayers, but other town bodies and governing pieces that have supported us when we have needs. And I think what you'll see tonight really is kind of a more forward and offensive approach, where we are, instead of waiting for a problem, not that we were waiting, but we are kind of planning for a cycle of maintenance. So I had a lot of thought about what could I hate PowerPoints that are read to you, and I said, what would be a good image that sort of captures Orange and, bringing both value and bringing maintenance, and not just throwing money at a problem, but taking the time to properly maintain things. And there was just one image that just kept coming back to me time and time again. So if you recall, in recent years, what has become one of the highlights of at least my family's year, and probably yours, something so unique to our community is the holiday tractor parade. And if you're not familiar with agriculture, you know how important a tractor is probably to everyone. I had some of my cousins had I believe a 48 Massey Ferguson. And the pride that people take in investing and maintaining shows here. So I want you to remember this picture here for a little bit. This is not a brand new tractor. This is something that has been maintained, has been cherished, has been protected. And when I kept thinking about Orange and how we have used our resources, there's a lot to be proud of that I think is captured in this image. So just as a refresher, we are sitting here in MLT. MLT was built in 1910. I found this kind of vintage postcard version of it, and I thought this would be kind of neat to share. Peck Place was built in 1968. Turkey Hill in 1964. Racebrook School in 1959. You may have noticed I have a lot of gray hair, but all of those were built before I was born. So I'm not good at math, but I wanted to put this here so I wouldn't forget. When I think of that picture that I shared with you, I think of a community that really chooses to invest in our schools. And while we have older schools, I think one of the reasons why they're still here is that generations past have worked towards investing and looking forward when that time was necessary to upgrade the buildings, just like you sort of see here in this classic tractor. So you had the opportunity to review Mr. Gray's plan, and I'm just going to share some of the highlights. As you can imagine, it's important to know where to go. We have a flow chart of responsibilities, as you can kind of indicate here, in terms of how the organization will work and staffing. And I think if I had to highlight the whole program in just one simple slide, I think this would be it, that really we are trying to change our main efforts into preventative maintenance versus reacting. And I think you'll see that in a couple of examples I'll share with you that Mr. Gray and his team prepared. This is just one example of a preventative maintenance schedule. And there are things that you see here that are broken down into both daily, monthly, quarterly opportunities, and what is expected of those particular inspections or maintenance. And this is just one example, again, of how, if you think of that image of the tractor and how someone took care of that, changed oil, upgraded parts, provided lubrication on a regular basis, this is sort of similar to that. It goes into great depth and even gives us samples. Our Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee, when we've toured a number of the buildings numerous times, just even this past summer, you could see these daily expectations for what work was needed to be done. Mr. Gray also used the teams to kind of go building by building as we did our final preparations, and just another example of forward thinking here, so that each day we have daily tasks, but then we're also looking forward to the longer-term responsibilities and maintenance. Another great part of this program, and I highlighted in the mission statement, is that it really connects us even further with our partners. Mr. Gray has done some great work reaching out and collaborating with Public Works, our building department. You might recall a number of years back, Mr. Kraut had some forward thinking in terms of pulling permits for when we are doing our own work to make sure that it's up to code. Our work with the fire department and the police department are just some of the examples of how, while we are a small district, we are seeking and getting some really positive collaboration with our partners. Mr. Gray referenced the capital planning. I couldn't make it much bigger, but you can kind of see the visual here of steps. And as the columns go from your left to right there, you'll notice that there are some recommended investments each year. And I sincerely hope that those of you remaining here on the board will consider following his recommendations. You might recall Mr. Allring's work with technology, whether it be the smartboard replacement or Google Chromebooks, where rather than waiting to have one big ticket expense in 1 year, trying to alleviate those costs by spreading them over time. So again, I think this is another really exciting piece of this. And if you come back to that image of that beautiful antique tractor from the holiday parade, this is perhaps our generation's opportunity to continue to invest in our infrastructure. One thing that did come up in our meeting, and I just submit for your consideration, is that maybe it's a potential to present almost two budgets to our town government partners. We have, and you all know what's in our typical budget, but I think aside from that, it might be possible, and I think there was some enthusiasm from the subcommittee that you may explore in the future about also presenting a capital budget. I think there has been a lot of very good financial management of our town, and I think if you could present that some of these costs extended over a period of years, rather than waiting, or procrastinating for a long time, would save us not only money, but make a lot of sense. So that is for your consideration as well. Looking to the future, I would imagine the future buildings and grounds will have to take a look at the growth of the town. We know that Firelight is in various stages of approval and potential development, and that would be 72 units, which would certainly have a big impact on our school. So that's something for your board to consider in the future. And I wanted to kind of come back to this here, this image here. You know, if you look around, there are not many schools in the country that are still up and working at 110 years old. And I think that's a real compliment. If you go back and you look at the names outside the MLT gym, that are some of the familiar names that you may see on street names or other places here in town. These were people who did take the time to not only sacrifice and invest to build these schools, but also to have the forward thinking to maintain them. I mean, we are sitting here tonight in a 110-year-old building. And I think that is really reflective of how our community has maintained its buildings. So I hope, while I will not have a direct vote here any further, but I hope we kind of continue to pick the left picture there, which has been such a hallmark of our community, and hopefully to avoid the right, which I don't think really is a big part of our character. So I certainly would like to pause here. If you have any questions, I or Mr. Gray could certainly answer them. And then I just have one other piece, Mr. Kraut.
Any questions for Mr. Flynn? Go ahead, Sue.
I would just like to comment, I'm very impressed with this plan. It's so thorough and detailed, it's great. And I think that the person who's coming in after Charles leaves will at least have a little bit more of a blueprint and understand better what's going on. Because I know when I first came on the board quite a few years ago, I had no idea what Building and Grounds did because it's a subcommittee. We don't actually do the work. We're not there like fixing things. Like, what do we really do? And so it was eye-opening, and this document is just fantastic. So thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Ken.
I like the idea of the capital budget I think the average school in Connecticut is 55 years old, and all of our schools are older than that. We've discussed it before. So at some point, it has to be addressed before they fall down.
Anyone? Just so I actually turned to Jeff during your presentation and said, we do need to follow up with that capital suggestion, and we will, Mr. Flynn, in your absence. Anybody else? Okay, Charles, go ahead.
Again, this is, I think a great way to end here for Buildings and Grounds, and I'm so beyond proud of the work Mr. Gray and his team have been able to accomplish, and I just would like to thank everybody. It has been a great privilege to be your colleague. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, curriculum, Mr. Ziman.
In the last year, I've found it very difficult to have to follow Charles's presentations. As a prelude, I wanted to say that due to the significant role acronyms play in education, I think it's important to break them down to determine what they stand for. Except when it comes to assessments, as that often doesn't give you any real insights into what they do. From observing students in grades 2 to 5 taking the STAR reading assessment and the Dibbles reading fluency assessment, a significant observation was that the students struggled with reading multisyllabic words accurately and fluently. Words like anxiety, illuminate, and submarine. Not being able to decode these words affects comprehension and suggests a need for an increased emphasis on explicit and systematic instruction for decoding multisyllabic words. Addressing this challenge requires instruction targeted at identifying several word parts in larger words, such as syllable types, prefixes, suffixes, and root words that carry meaning. A simple example is the use of onsets and rhymes. Not rhyme, R-H-Y-M-E, like old and mold. This is R-I-M-E. Onset being the beginning sound and the rhyme being the vowel and the rest of the word. For instance, take the rhyme IT, I-G-H-T. With it, you can make words such as light, right, and might. They can then be extended to lightning, brighter, mightiest. This emphasis will be included in instruction with additional resources for students and teachers available. Another subject was LEAP, or Learning Enrichment Activities Program. We're working on updating criteria for the current LEAP, which has a STEM, or science, technology, engineering, math focus. As is typical in districts around the country, these programs are designed to meet the specific and unique needs of 3 to 5% of the student population. To identify these students, and with the understanding that no one test is perfect, we will continue to rely on the COGAT, but using its subtests rather than a composite score. We also discussed the fact that we would like to have an arts component, but this is much more subjective. But there are no established criteria to use at this time, but we will explore possibilities and consider updating the LEAP program. Thanks to Mary Ito for coming to the meeting and helping to explain what we're trying to accomplish with this program. The LEAP conversation led to a discussion regarding concerns that some of the accomplishments of the last few years might have been slowed down over the difficult last year and a half. We felt it was important to emphasize the need for our teachers to use differentiated instruction to directly meet the varied educational needs of all our children, especially those who require enrichment, but who may not meet the 3 to 5% targeted for LEAP. That was it. Multisyllabic.
Thank you, Mr. Ziman. Any questions for Mr. Ziman? Very well. Ms. Riccio, ACES report, and don't forget to mention the foundation again at the end of your report.
Yeah,
Okay.
I will. So the ACES governing board meeting was last Thursday, and some of the highlights were that ACES currently has 91% vaccinated. The other 9%, this is staff, teachers and staff. The other 9% is getting tested weekly. That's one piece. There is, they are doing some work with curriculum, and I wanted to share with Dr. Russo the curriculum management plan that ACES has put out. It is similar to some of the things we're doing, but obviously not at the level of detail that you've shared with us. So I'll provide that to you. ACES is experiencing, as many districts are, is a shortage of bus drivers. They have a significant signing bonus if anyone is interested in becoming a bus driver. I think it's a $7,000 bonus. So something to think about. On the lines of buses, there was also a ribbon cutting. I gave Mr. Gray the paper on it. It was, ACES was very fortunate to have been the first to actually have purchased the first all-electric bus in the state. They are not only just getting the electric part of it, they're also installing solar panels on their transportation center, so it will be a zero cost overall. So it was very cool. Oh, and I have some props to show you. They gave us mugs that say ACES, ACES EV for a mug, if anyone would like a mug. We also got a key ring. We also got the ACES EV and lanyard. So feel free. I'll pass them around if you guys would like something. Just because I go doesn't mean I get to keep everything. And I already contributed a candy bar to the central office. So you wanna, I'll pass it this way first, and you guys can feel free to, if you'd like something. ACES also has a significant number of openings, so if anybody's looking for a job. Everything from PT, special ed, science teachers, elementary school teacher, social work, Head Start, music teacher, and the list goes on for a little over a page. So if you're interested, check out the ACES website, and they have a ton of before and after school instructor positions, school psychologists, interns, class aides. It's aces.org. And the only other item I wanted to note was that the early Head Start, we have reached our target of 60 children, which is what we needed to be able to be sustainable. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Riccio. Any questions for Ms. Riccio? Very well, thank you. So I am going to look for a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting.
Captain, before we do, could I just
Captain.
kick in real quick?
Oh,
I don't want to forestall the Ken's final vote to get out of here, but I just want to take a moment to express to you and to all our townspeople my genuine appreciation for the responsibility and the honor and the duty to have served with all of you over the last 8 years that went by in 80 years and 8 seconds all at the same time. I mean,
Yep.
starting out with things that I don't think the board would ever have imagined, infrastructure stuff like Peck Place, into, you know, Mike Nast and getting to meet the new administrators, into horrible tragedies like Sandy Hook that led to security issues and all the financial considerations along the way. So it was just a lot that I think we did together, and I just want to say, you know, really thank you. It's been really a privilege and an honor to get to know you and to work with you. And I'm encouraged to see those people of our community who are stepping up and are coming forward to kind of grab the torch, if you use that expression, take over and continue working with you all in Charles's and my and Kim's absence going forward. So I will definitely miss the time we spent together. I feel like we've done great work together. And Kim, even though, and Captain, even though you've said we've disagreed on more than occasion, and quite frankly, I think, Kim, you've pointed out I've disagreed with myself on more than occasion and had hostile arguments where I lose myself. I think it goes to all of our credit, and maybe mine just a little bit, but together, it's not how we, or it's not that we disagree. I think we're supposed to disagree. I mean, we're not here in my opinion, to express our own individual thoughts or form some collective thought as a board. We each are here to represent the members of our community, those who have asked us to come here and be their eyes and be their ears and be their voices. And inasmuch as we can all look at our neighbors and our constituents and those we know about town and realize they don't agree, well, I don't think we're supposed to agree, because we're supposed to be vetting their different thoughts and their different opinions as well as ours. So that's to our credit as a board. I think, Vince, you may have said this because you've seen other boards over years, and this is the only board I've ever seen. I think there is a magic to this town and a magic to our community. It truly is beautiful. The way we work as a board is nonpartisan, is non-individualistic. It is truly what's best for the people who voted for us to be here, what's best for our kids, what's best for the crown jewel of our town, which is our farms, fresh milk, and our schools, really. I mean, and I think that we've done just an amazing job at working together, not to focus on differences or individual personalities or hostilities, but to really coalesce for the benefit of our town. And I think that those who are running, coming up in this election, promise to work just as well with all of us, all of you, I should say, not us, much longer in that fashion. So I've been honored to work with you. I thank you very much, and I'll miss you.
I know we're going to miss everybody, to be honest with you. Kind of bit of a family atmosphere here sometimes. But moving on. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn this evening's meeting. Mary Shaw, would you please, Mrs. Brow and Counselor Young collectively made the motion? And Mr. Flynn seconded the motion?
Charles is setting off flares.
I don't, okay. Any discussion? Don't get him started. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Very well. We are adjourned at, what time is it, Susan?
8:04.
8:04. Thank you.